Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. And unfortunately it's more bad news. There's been another comic delay, and that is that Imbalance Part 1 has been delayed again. And I think the worst thing about this is that this was the comic that was most recently delayed. I'd sort of like, we'd gone through the Team Avatar Tales delay, the Turf Wars Part 3 delay, then it was just like, oh yeah, and then of course Imbalance is going to be delayed, and it was. And now it's been delayed again. About like a couple of weeks after that delay, here's another one. So right now what they're saying, Dark Horse is saying December 18th, 2018. We'll come back to that in a second because there's a little bit of a problem with that. But just for now, December 18th, 2018. What was it before? When it was first announced in that, I think it was an EW.com article, when we got the name of Imbalance, October 10th was the date that it was due to be out on. It was the, at the time, furthest out of all of the books, because Turf Wars was out way earlier than it is now. Team Avatar Tales was not next year, it was even before this. For some reason it's all been switched around and we have no idea what's going on. But it was October 10th. The last delay for this put it at November 7th as when it was coming out. Now it's saying December 18th. So all of this adds up to the fact that the book's been now delayed by over 2 months for no reason given as such right now. Now, it is a new creative team, it's a part 1. Usually a delay to a part 1, you know, you'll give it a bit more leeway, especially with a new creative team involved. But I hope this does not mean that this is going to be the case once again. Because we've been through this already. This is the whole Irene Co. Turf Wars fiasco where those books, I think it's just fair to say, they take too long to come out. They're in the end not worth waiting that long for, given what they end up being. Hopefully part 3 is obviously an improvement and finishes off the series well, but we don't want to be waiting that long for books, given that they're only 72 pages. Hopefully this is just a part 1 thing and they really get that figured out and it's not 6-8 months between books. So anyway, what's the problem with the December 18th date? That's what Dark Horse is saying officially, and usually they're fairly accurate. The problem is that if you look at a calendar, December 2018, the 18th is a Tuesday. Comics come out on a Wednesday, and Dark Horse specifically, since they're a comic company, of course would use the initial comic book store release date as opposed to the Tuesday, usually after the initial comic book store release date. I think 2 weeks after that, 13 days is a Tuesday, the mass market release date, like on Amazon and stuff like that. I went to Previews World and they are saying what seems to be the official date, which is December 19th, 2018, which is a Wednesday. That makes the most sense, and especially given that they have a final orders date for comic book stores, this would make sense that realistically it's not going to change date from here, but we don't know. So, you know, December 19th looks like is when it's going to be out, like just under a week before Christmas. It's like, okay, fine. We'll wait for it, but this doesn't look good. That's 2018 has just been a very bad year for Avatar comics and core comics, with delays, books taking so long to come out, production problems, lack of communication from Dark Horse, and Dark Horse just looking very disorganized and not particularly great because of also just the lack of communications to the fans about all of this. That especially for this book, Imbalance, where it was announced in an article, and most people will remember that article as like it had the October date for this book because that was the announcement. That's what everyone will have seen. Only like comics fans and hardcore Avatar comics fans who kind of check up information on these comics every so often are going to see these release date changes. And that doesn't look good, where like we're going to come up to October and inevitably there are going to be people being like, oh, remember guys, you know, the book's out next week, October 10th. And then we obviously have to come in and say, actually, you're going to be waiting 2 and a bit months longer for that book because it's now out December 19th. So, it's definitely not a good thing, and I don't think there's any way to really, angle this to be positive. You could say, oh, it gives them more time to make the book, as good as it could be, but like, it's a new creative team. They've had so much time already when this book was announced, and so on. Like, there's been time. Again, like, North and South, like, it came out a while ago. Like, it's not like it's only a couple of months since North and South. North and South has been out for ages. Between Avatar comics, we've had a very, very long time. And it's also been a long time since the last Avatar comic that was out in January. We're like over halfway through the year now, and we're still more or less still a month away from Turf Wars, let alone Imbalance. So obviously this happens every time when these books comes out. It's hard to say anything positive about the delay because we're never being told why it happens. If it is going to be the final delay, if this is the final release date, or we're going to be waiting until 2019 again for this book to be coming out. I would assume this would probably have to be the final date, and that they wouldn't want to move it into 2019. It does, though, make me question why Team Avatar Tales, again, was the book that was pushed into 2019. The reason I say that is because it's the book that would have the least amount of new content to be done for it, because it's still only a 72-page book, but it's going to be reprinting 30 plus pages of content from books that have already been out, with the reprints of like Rebound Shells and so on. Plus we've seen preview pages for that book already, whereas we don't have preview pages yet for Turf Wars Part 3 or preview pages for Imbalance yet. So I don't know what's going on. This date change also, I think, means that the when we expect preview pages for Imbalance Part 1 now moves until like October or something like that. We won't be seeing preview pages for a long time now. So, this is pretty bad. This looks terrible for Dark Horse. If you just bullet point list all of the release date changes for the books that they have, and given that they only have 3 books announced at this point, given that we don't know if there's any more Korra comics coming, they haven't announced the Korra, the Turf Wars Library Edition yet, they haven't properly announced Imbalance Part 2 or 3 yet, even though we know they're basically a thing, and there's no, we don't know what the next Avatar comic is or anything like that. They only have 3 books for Avatar announced, and all of them had release date changes. I think it's 2 for Turf Wars Part 3, 2 for Imbalance Part 1 now, and then 1 for Team Avatar Tales. But the Team Avatar Tales one is pretty bad because it was delayed by 4 months in one go, when that's the book that makes the least sense for why it was even changed in the first place. So, yeah, that's the news. It's bad again. And again, I'll ask the question, what are your thoughts on this? What's happening with Dark Horse and Avatar Comics? There has to be some sort of a problem. I don't know why this is the case. And I really want Dark Horse to actually say something about this. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.